A particle of light begins a journey through a young universe. There are no telescopes waiting for it, no observatories, no human eyes, no Earth, no sun, no familiar constellations. The universe is hot, dense, and still developing. Matter is beginning to settle into forms that will eventually allow stars and galaxies to emerge. The light travels onward. Billions of years pass. Stars are born. Galaxies turn. Worlds form. On one small planet, human beings learn to shape glass, build telescopes, place instruments above the atmosphere, and search the darkness for messages from the distant past. At last, that ancient light reaches a detector. It carries information about the physical history of the universe. But can it carry something more? Can astronomy prove that Islam is true? Welcome to the Guided Hour, where every journey carries a story and every story carries guidance. Today, we journey through the Quran, the cosmos, and the difficult question of what the stars can honestly prove. The question sounds simple. Look at the universe. Compare it with the Quran, find a match, declare victory, but honest investigation is rarely that easy. The word proof can mean several different things. In mathematics, a proof begins with accepted definitions and assumptions. It proceeds through valid logical steps until a conclusion necessarily follows. Once the proof is sound, rejecting its conclusion means rejecting one of its premises or rules of reasoning. Astronomy works differently. Astronomers collect light, measure motion, examine spectra, compare observations, build models, make predictions, and test those predictions against new evidence. A successful scientific theory does not become an eternal mathematical certainty. It becomes the strongest available explanation because it accounts for the evidence better than competing models. Historical reasoning works differently again. A historian cannot repeat the rise of an ancient empire in a laboratory. The historian studies documents, material remains, testimony, dates, transmission, motives, and competing explanations. Then there is philosophical reasoning. Philosophy asks questions such as why anything exists, whether physical laws require an explanation, whether moral duties are objective, whether consciousness can be reduced entirely to matter, and what kind of conclusion the available evidence makes reasonable. These methods can cooperate, but they are not identical. Astronomy can tell us that distant galaxies are moving in ways consistent with an expanding universe. Astronomy cannot place prophethood inside a telescope. It can measure light from a star. It cannot measure sincerity, revelation, accountability after death, forgiveness, or divine purpose with that same instrument. This does not mean those realities are false. It means a tool must be used for the kind of question it is capable of examining. A thermometer cannot tell us whether an act was just. A telescope cannot tell us whether a historical messenger was truthful. A laboratory cannot determine whether human life possesses ultimate purpose merely by measuring the materials from which the human body is made. So our investigation begins with an important correction. Astronomy cannot prove every claim of Islam through astronomy alone. If it could, every astronomer using the same equipment would be logically forced to become a Muslim. No additional historical, moral, textual, or philosophical reasoning would be needed. That is not the world we observe. People look at the same universe and reach different conclusions. One person sees unguided physical processes. Another sees laws that require no explanation beyond themselves. Another sees an intelligible order pointing toward a creator. Another remains uncertain. The disagreement does not prove that evidence is meaningless. It shows that observations must be interpreted. The Quran itself does not usually describe the heavens as laboratory proofs that remove every possibility of denial. It calls them signs. An araya is a sign, an indication, a meaningful marker directing attention beyond itself. A road sign does not physically force a traveler to follow it. It communicates direction to someone willing and able to read it. In the third chapter of the Quran, the creation of the heavens and earth and the alternation of night and day are described as signs for people of understanding. Notice what follows. The people being praised do not merely look upward and collect facts. They remember Allah. They reflect on creation. Their reflection leads them toward the conviction that the universe was not created without purpose. Observation moves toward meaning. Meaning moves toward responsibility. This is not hostility toward science. It is a larger vision of knowledge. Science may describe how day follows night through the rotation of Earth. The Quran asks what a human being should recognize while watching that pattern. Science can calculate the energy of a star. The Quran asks whether the order, dependence, beauty, and mortality of creation should awaken humility. The two questions are related, but they are not interchangeable. The Quran repeatedly asks human beings to look, think, travel, compare, remember, and reconsider. In Surah Al-Mulk, the listener is told to look again and again at the heavens. That instruction matters. It does not say, look once, accept the first explanation you hear, and never investigate again. It directs the observer back toward creation. Look again. Examine again. Search for rupture, disorder, or failure. The physical universe certainly contains collisions, explosions, collapsing stars, radiation, and environments in which human life could not survive. The verse is not promising that creation will always look gentle from a human perspective. It directs attention toward coherence. Stars may collapse, but they do not abandon physical regularity while collapsing. Galaxies may collide, but the collision does not occur outside every pattern of motion. The universe is not a collection of unrelated events changing their rules without warning from one second to the next. It is intelligible enough to investigate. The human mind can discover mathematical relationships that apply far beyond the location where they were first tested. That intelligibility is one of the quiet wonders beneath all science. Before a scientist can explain an observation, the scientist must trust that careful investigation is meaningful. Measurements are repeated because nature displays regularities. Predictions are possible because the physical world is not completely arbitrary. Mistakes can be corrected because reality is not created by our preferences. This attitude has a deeply moral side. To investigate honestly, a person must be willing to discover that a favorite claim is wrong. That can be difficult when the claim is connected to identity. A Muslim may hear that a particular Quran verse predicted a modern discovery with perfect precision. The claim feels exciting. It is repeated in a video, a lecture, a classroom, or a social media post. Questioning it may feel like weakening faith, but truth does not need inaccurate support. A weak argument does not become strong because it is used in defense of something sacred. Sometimes protecting the honor of revelation requires refusing to attach revelation to claims it never clearly made. This principle appears powerfully in an event from the life of Prophet Muhammad. A solar eclipse occurred on a day of personal grief. The Prophet's young son had died. Some people connected the eclipse to the child's death. Imagine how easily that idea could have been used. A leader seeking personal glory might have allowed the rumor to spread. He might have said that even the sky mourned his family. He might have transformed an astronomical event into a public confirmation of his special status. Instead, Prophet Muhammad corrected the people. He taught that the sun and moon are signs of Allah and that they do not eclipse because of anyone's death or birth. That correction is important for more than the history of eclipse prayer. It reveals an ethical relationship with the natural world. A physical event should not be given a false personal explanation merely because that explanation is emotionally powerful. The Prophet rejected superstition even when superstition might have benefited him. The eclipse remained spiritually meaningful. It was still called a sign. It still called people toward prayer and remembrance. But its spiritual meaning did not require a false physical cause. This is a model worth remembering. A Muslim does not have to choose between physical explanation and spiritual significance. An eclipse can be described through the positions and motions of the sun, moon, and earth. It can also remind a believer of human weakness, cosmic order, mortality, and dependence upon Allah. Understanding the mechanism does not remove the meaning. Knowing how rain forms does not make gratitude irrational. Understanding how the eye detects light does not make beauty unreal. Knowing the physical stages of a star does not answer why an intelligible universe exists or what a conscious human being should do with the ability to understand it. The eclipse account also protects our investigation from a dangerous temptation. Sometimes religious people treat every unusual event as a direct personal message. A bright object appears in the sky, and someone declares that it confirms a political prediction. An eclipse takes place, and someone attaches it to a particular death. A disaster occurs, and someone claims to know exactly why Allah allowed it. The Quran allows us to recognize signs without claiming knowledge that has not been revealed. Creation can direct us toward the Creator without giving us permission to invent secret meanings for every event. That distinction prepares us for one of the most popular claims in discussions about the Quran and astronomy. Did the Quran describe the Big Bang? The modern scientific model begins with evidence that the observable universe was once much hotter and denser than it is today. Space itself has expanded. As the universe expanded, it cooled. Particles formed stable combinations. Atoms eventually formed. Gravity gathered matter into larger structures. Stars and galaxies developed across immense spans of time. Astronomers observe several major lines of evidence supporting this broad picture. Distant galaxies display patterns connected to cosmic expansion. The proportions of light elements fit calculations from a hot, early universe. A faint background of microwave radiation reaches us from every direction. It is ancient light released when the universe became transparent enough for light to travel freely. The Big Bang is often imagined as an explosion from one location into empty space. That picture can be misleading. The Standard Model describes the expansion of the universe itself. It does not simply describe material flying outward from an ordinary bomb located at the center of a pre-existing room. It also does not provide a complete explanation of why the universe exists. It does not identify the ultimate cause of physical reality. It does not tell us why there are laws capable of governing an expanding universe. It does not establish that the earliest state known to physics emerged from absolute nothing without a cause. The model traces physical history as far as evidence and theory currently allow. Questions remain, especially about the earliest moments and the nature of inflation. Now consider the 30th ayah of Surah Al-Anbiya. The verse asks whether those who reject faith have considered that the heavens and earth were joined or closed, after which Allah separated or opened them. The verse then connects life with water. Modern readers often place this verse beside the Big Bang model. The resemblance can feel immediate: a joined cosmic condition, a separation, a universe developing from an earlier unity, life connected with water, but careful reading requires more than resemblance. The Arabic words carry meanings broader than a modern technical cosmology. Classical tafsir preserved several interpretations. Some interpreters understood the heavens and earth as joined before being separated. Some describe the heavens as one and then divided into levels with a corresponding division of the earth. Others connected the verse with rain and vegetation. The sky was closed and gave no rain. The earth was closed and produced no plants. Allah opened the sky with rain and opened the earth with growth. These interpretations existed long before modern cosmology. That history prevents us from saying that every qualified reader always understood the verse as an exact description of the Big Bang. It also prevents the opposite claim. It would be unfair to say the verse has no relationship at all to cosmic origins merely because it is expressed in non-technical language. The verse is broad enough to describe a transition from closure or unity toward opening or separation. That can be compatible with an evolving cosmos, but compatibility is not the same as a precise prediction. Imagine an ancient text saying that the heavens were opened. That statement might fit several physical events. It might describe cosmic separation. It might describe rain. It might use visible language for a theological truth. The more possible meanings a sentence allows, the less precisely it predicts one later discovery. This does not make the sentence worthless. It means we should identify the kind of claim being made. The Quran is not presenting equations for cosmic expansion. It is directing attention toward dependence, life, creation, and belief. The ending of the verse matters. It does not say, therefore, calculate a cosmological parameter. It asks whether people will believe. The movement is from creation to recognition of the Creator. The physical description serves a theological argument. This is why scientific miracle claims must be handled carefully. Suppose a Muslim says, the Quran gave a complete scientific explanation of the Big Bang. A knowledgeable listener may examine the Arabic language, classical tafsir, and modern cosmology. The listener may discover that the verse allows several interpretations and that the scientific theory contains details not stated in the verse. The original claim may then appear exaggerated. The listener might wrongly conclude that the Quran itself has failed. But the failure belonged to the exaggerated claim. The revelation did not promise a modern astrophysics textbook. The person promoting the argument promised more than the text required. A more careful statement is stronger. The Quran describes the heavens and earth as undergoing an opening or separation by the command of Allah. This description is not incompatible with an evolving universe that began in a hot, dense condition. The verse also had meaningful classical interpretations before modern cosmology. Therefore, it should not be presented as an uncontested technical prediction of the Big Bang. That sentence is less dramatic. It is also more durable. Faith built on honesty does not need to fear precision. There is another reason for caution. Scientific models develop. The broad conclusion that the universe expanded from a hotter and denser state is supported by substantial evidence. But scientific understanding of the earliest physical conditions remains incomplete. If a believer ties the meaning of a verse to one highly specific scientific model, what happens when that model is revised? The Quran does not change whenever a scientific paper changes. Our interpretations may change. Our applications may improve. Our confidence in a particular scientific comparison may rise or fall. Revelation should not be made dependent on every temporary scientific proposal. At the same time, fear of exaggeration should not make us blind to genuine harmony. The Quran does not require a static, eternal, unchanging cosmos. It presents the heavens and earth as created. It presents them as ordered by Allah. It describes stages, measure, motion, origin, and an appointed end. A universe with a physical history is entirely at home within that worldview. The Big Bang model does not prove Tawheed. It does remove one imagined objection. A person cannot reasonably claim that modern astronomy has discovered the universe to be physically eternal, static, and without a developmental history. Modern cosmology instead presents a universe with a measurable past, changing conditions, and unanswered questions at the boundary of physical explanation. Those facts do not force belief. They create philosophical space for deeper questions. Why is there a universe capable of expansion? Why do mathematical laws describe it? Why did the early universe contain conditions from which structure could emerge? Why does conscious life exist within it? Science can keep investigating earlier stages. The philosophical question of ultimate explanation remains. Now we turn to another famous verse. In Surah ad-Dhariyat, Allah describes building the heaven with power. A key Arabic word in the verse has been translated by many modern translators in connection with expansion. The modern scientific fact is clear at the broad level. The universe is expanding. Distant galaxies are generally carried farther apart as space expands. Light traveling through expanding space becomes stretched toward longer wavelengths. Measurements of that light allow astronomers to reconstruct parts of cosmic history. The expansion is not merely an old discovery left untouched since the 20th century. Scientists continue measuring its rate, mapping ancient background radiation, studying supernovae, investigating dark energy, and comparing models of how expansion changed over time. So did the Quran state this discovery centuries earlier? Again, the answer depends on the precision of our claim. The relevant Arabic expression can communicate vastness, capacity, power, making something spacious, or expansion. Some modern translations choose continuing expansion. Classical tafsir often emphasized that Allah made the heaven vast or possesses the power to extend it. That does not mean the modern translation is necessarily impossible. Language can carry a meaning that becomes especially striking in light of later knowledge. But the classical record shows that the verse was not universally treated as a technical statement about measurable cosmic expansion. A careful believer can therefore say that the verse is remarkably compatible with an expanding and vast universe. A careful believer should hesitate before saying that the verse states the modern expansion model with only one possible meaning. The difference may appear small. It is not. One statement invites reflection. The other claims exclusive scientific precision. The first can remain true even if scholars debate translation. The second becomes vulnerable to every linguistic objection. There is beauty in allowing the Quran to speak in its own form. Its language can address a shepherd beneath the stars, a scholar examining grammar, a child learning about galaxies, and an astronomer analyzing ancient light. It does not need to become a laboratory manual to remain profound. The verse about the heavens' vastness is followed by language about the earth being made suitable and things being created in pairs. Then comes a command to flee toward Allah and avoid worshipping another beside him. The destination is Tawheed. Cosmic language is not being offered as entertainment. It is part of an argument about where dependence should laid. The universe is immense, but it is not divine. The stars are powerful, but they are not gods. The laws of nature are reliable, but they are not objects of worship. The human being can understand parts of the cosmos, but did not create the mind, the cosmos, or the laws connecting them. Astronomy can enlarge human knowledge while reducing human arrogance. That combination is deeply Quranic. Knowledge without humility can convince a person that explaining a mechanism removes the need for every deeper explanation. Humility without knowledge can make a person afraid of investigation. The Quranic approach joins reflection with remembrance. Look carefully, learn honestly, then remember what kind of being you are. You are an observer inside the universe, not outside it. Your body is made from its materials. Your eyes function through its physical regularities. Your brain depends on conditions you did not choose. Your lifespan occupies a tiny interval within cosmic history, yet you have been given the ability to ask what the universe means. The Quran also describes the sun and moon as moving, each within an orbit. This language is accurate at a general level. The moon travels around Earth. Earth and the other planets travel around the sun. The sun moves within the Milky Way. Our solar system travels around the center of the galaxy across an immense period. The galaxy itself participates in larger gravitational motions. Nothing in this picture requires the sun to be motionless, but here another correction is necessary. Ancient people were not ignorant of every form of astronomy. They observed the sky carefully. They tracked the moon. They predicted seasons. They used celestial motion for calendars and navigation. Different ancient models attempted to explain the paths of heavenly bodies. Therefore, saying that celestial bodies move in courses was not completely beyond all human observation before modern science. The verse remains true. Its truth alone does not prove that no 7th century observer could have spoken about celestial motion. This is one of the central tests in our episode. A statement can be accurate without being a uniquely impossible piece of knowledge. To prove revelation from a scientific statement, it is not enough to show that the statement can be read consistently with modern science. One must also establish that the meaning is clear, that the knowledge was unavailable through ordinary means, that the wording is precise rather than flexible, that the scientific conclusion is secure, and that the best explanation of the statement is revelation. That is a much larger task than placing two quotations side by side. The Quran does not need us to pretend that ancient humanity knew nothing. In fact, the Quran speaks to people who observed the world. Its arguments often begin with familiar realities. Night and day, rain and vegetation, human birth, animals, ships, wind, mountains, the sun and moon. The power of the argument does not always depend on the audience being unaware of the fact. It depends on the audience failing to recognize what the fact signifies. A person can know that rain falls and still ignore dependence upon Allah. A person can know that planets move and still refuse to consider why an ordered reality exists. A person can map the stars and remain morally lost. Information does not automatically produce wisdom. The Quran's challenge is not merely, "Did you know this fact?" It is also, "What are you doing with what you know?" If this journey is helping you understand the question in a new way, take a moment to like this episode, subscribe to the Guided Hour, and share it with someone who may benefit. Your support helps more families discover thoughtful and reliable Islamic storytelling. Now let us return to the universe. One of the strongest bridges between astronomy and belief is not a single translated word. It is the wider question of order and fine-tuning. To understand that discussion, imagine changing the conditions of the universe. Change the strength of a force, change the mass of a particle, change the amount or behavior of matter and energy, change the early distribution of density. Some changes would prevent stable atoms, some would prevent long-lived stars, some would prevent galaxies. Some would produce a universe that expands too rapidly for matter to gather into complex structures. Others could produce rapid collapse. The exact significance of these examples is debated, and scientists continue studying how wide the life-permitting ranges may be. Still, the general discussion is serious. The universe permits complex structures. Stars formed. Some stars lived long enough to produce heavier elements. Planetary systems emerged. At least one world developed conditions in which liquid water, complex chemistry, and living organisms became possible. Earth is located within a region around the Sun where surface liquid water can exist under suitable atmospheric conditions. That region alone does not guarantee life. A planet also depends on many other characteristics. Its atmosphere, mass, chemistry, geological activity, stellar environment, and history all matter. Astronomers have now detected thousands of planets beyond our solar system. Some are rocky, some are enormous gas worlds, some orbit extremely close to their stars, some exist in systems unlike our own. The growing catalogue teaches humility. We should not imagine that every planetary arrangement must look like the one familiar to us. It also teaches caution. Finding a planet within a habitable zone does not prove that life exists there. It means certain conditions may allow liquid water. Science distinguishes possibility from confirmation. Religious reasoning must practice the same discipline. Fine-tuning can refer to more than one issue. Sometimes scientists say a theory is fine-tuned when it requires parameters to take unusually precise values without an underlying explanation. Sometimes philosophers discuss whether the life-permitting character of the universe counts as evidence for design. These are connected conversations, but they are not identical. A believer may reason as follows: a universe governed by intelligible laws, containing conditions capable of producing conscious and morally aware beings, is more expected if it comes from a wise creator than if it is an unexplained accident. Therefore, the life-permitting order provides evidence for a creator. A critic may respond in several ways. Perhaps a deeper physical theory will show that the constants could not have been different. Perhaps many universes exist with different conditions, and observers naturally find themselves only in a universe compatible with observers. Perhaps probability cannot be calculated because we do not know the range or distribution of possible universes. Perhaps the universe is simply a brute fact without further explanation. Perhaps forms of life radically different from us could exist under conditions we assume are lifeless. These responses do not automatically defeat the argument. The argument does not automatically defeat every response. The debate depends on probability, explanation, observer selection, metaphysics, and what each worldview leads us to expect. This is philosophy informed by science. It is not an astronomical measurement labeled God detected. Fine-tuning may strengthen a cumulative case for belief. It does not function like a photograph of Allah. Allah is not an object within the universe occupying coordinates, reflecting light, and waiting for a telescope to become powerful enough. In Islam, Allah is the creator of space, time, matter, law, and every instrument through which created beings investigate them. Looking for Allah as though he were another object beside a galaxy misunderstands the claim. The signs point through creation. They are not the creator himself. This helps answer a common question. As telescopes become more powerful, will science eventually explain away Allah? The question assumes that Allah occupies a shrinking region of ignorance. Long ago, people did not understand lightning, so they attributed it to divine action. Then science explained electrical processes, and the divine explanation disappeared. This is sometimes called placing God inside the gaps of knowledge. That approach is fragile. A gap becomes smaller as scientific understanding grows. But classical Islamic belief does not require Allah only where mechanisms remain unknown. A known mechanism remains created and dependent. Gravity does not become independent merely because equations describe it. A complete physical description of star formation would still leave philosophical questions about why physical reality exists, why these laws hold, and why rational minds can understand them. Allah is not merely an alternative mechanism competing with natural mechanisms. Saying that Allah creates through ordered causes does not prevent investigation of those causes. The eclipse had a physical explanation and remained a sign. Rain has a physical process and remains a mercy. Human development has biological stages and remains an act of creation. The word natural should not be treated as meaning independent of Allah. For the believer, nature is the regular created order. This protects faith from scientific progress. A new discovery does not push Allah farther away. It reveals another layer of the order that belief already attributes to Him. But this principle must not be misused. A believer cannot attach any desired scientific theory to a verse and then call disagreement disbelief. The natural world is from Allah. Revelation is from Allah. Our interpretations of both can be mistaken. A scientist may misread data. A translator may select one possible meaning. A preacher may repeat an argument without checking it. A viewer may confuse confidence with evidence. Human error can enter every stage. Humility, therefore, operates in two directions. Do not assume that current science has answered every ultimate question. Do not assume that your preferred interpretation of a verse is the only interpretation Allah allowed. The Quranic command to look again applies to our arguments too. Look again at the verse. Look again at the Arabic. Look again at the context. Look again at classical tafsir. Look again at the scientific source. Look again at what the conclusion actually proves. This leads to a decisive distinction. Even if astronomy provided powerful evidence for a creator, it would not by itself prove Islam specifically. A vast, ordered, life-permitting universe might support belief in intelligent creation. But several religious and philosophical traditions believe in a creator or ultimate source. Astronomy alone cannot tell us that the Quran is revelation. It cannot reconstruct the public life of Prophet Muhammad. It cannot examine the transmission of the Quran as a historical text. It cannot compare Islamic Tawheed with competing theological models. It cannot determine whether the Prophet's teachings display honesty, consistency, and moral seriousness. It cannot investigate fulfilled historical claims, legal principles, spiritual experience, linguistic form, or the transformation of the earliest Muslim community. Those questions require other forms of evidence. To move from "the universe may have an intelligent creator" to "Islam is true," a person needs a cumulative case. The case may include the existence and attributes of Allah. It may include the coherence of Tawheed. It may include the possibility and purpose of revelation. It may include the character and historical mission of Prophet Muhammad. It may include the Quran's message, preservation, structure, challenges, moral vision, and relationship with earlier revelation. It may include the way Islamic teachings explain worship, justice, mercy, accountability, human weakness, and repentance. It may include personal experience, while recognizing that private experience must be interpreted carefully. Astronomy can be one room within that larger house. It should not be asked to carry the entire building. This does not weaken the case for Islam. It makes the case more intellectually complete. A court does not usually decide a major case from one isolated detail. Evidence accumulates. Independent lines of reasoning strengthen one another. A historical document may fit archaeological evidence. A witness's character may support the credibility of testimony. A motive may be examined. Competing explanations may be compared. The strongest explanation is the one that accounts for the greatest amount of evidence with the fewest serious contradictions. Religious conviction can also be cumulative. The universe may make belief in creation reasonable. The Quran may provide a coherent account of the Creator. The life of the Prophet may provide grounds for trusting the message. Worship and moral transformation may allow a person to experience the worldview from within. No single star needs to carry all of that. There is wisdom in the Quran using the language of signs. A sign participates in a network. One road sign tells you that a city lies ahead. Another gives the distance. A map shows the route. The landscape confirms that you are moving in the correct direction. Eventually, several signs converge. Astronomy may tell the traveler to take the possibility of creation seriously. It does not complete every mile of the journey. Now consider Surah Fussilat, where Allah says that signs will be shown in the horizons and within human beings until the truth becomes clear. This verse is sometimes treated as a promise that every future scientific discovery will directly confirm a hidden prediction in the Quran. That is more than the verse necessarily says. The signs in the horizons can include events, creation, history, and everything through which truth becomes recognizable. The signs within ourselves can include physical creation, consciousness, moral awareness, dependence, weakness, and the inner recognition of truth. The verse is broad. Its power does not depend on turning each new research paper into an encoded Quranic secret. The universe outside us and the experience within us can work together. Outside, we encounter scale. Inside, we encounter consciousness capable of recognizing scale. Outside, we encounter law. Inside, we encounter reason capable of describing law. Outside, we encounter beauty. Inside, we encounter a response to beauty that cannot be expressed merely by stating the wavelength of light. Outside, we encounter mortality in collapsing stars and changing worlds. Inside, we know that our own lives are limited. The horizons and the self meet in one question. What kind of reality produces a being capable of asking what reality means? Science can study the neural activity involved in asking. Philosophy asks whether the physical description exhausts the meaning of the question. Revelation answers by locating the human being within creation, responsibility, and return to Allah. The Quran's cosmic passages rarely permit the observer to remain a detached spectator. They turn the gaze back toward life. Have you recognized dependence? Have you rejected false objects of worship? Have you become less arrogant? Have you acted justly? Have you prepared to return? The stars are not presented merely to make a person feel small. Feeling small can become despair. The Quran places human smallness beside moral significance. The universe is vast, yet your choices matter. Your body is physically tiny, yet you can tell the truth or lie. You can protect someone weaker than yourself or exploit them. You can receive knowledge with gratitude or use it for arrogance. You can look at creation and remember Allah, or look at the same creation and imagine that intelligence makes you independent. The scale of the cosmos does not erase moral responsibility. It intensifies the mystery of it. Why should a creature on a small world possess an awareness of justice? Why should truth matter to us? Why should we feel that cruelty is not merely a different arrangement of particles? Astronomy cannot answer those questions by itself. That does not make astronomy incomplete as astronomy. It means human knowledge contains several dimensions. A map can be excellent without being a poem. A poem can reveal meaning without replacing a map. Revelation can guide the use of scientific knowledge without becoming a scientific journal. Confusion begins when one method is forced to replace every other method. The believer should not force the Quran to provide details it was not revealed to provide. The scientist should not claim that physical measurement has disproved every reality that cannot be physically measured. Both errors cross the boundaries of their methods. How then should a family evaluate the next viral claim that astronomy proves a verse? Use 5 tests. First, examine the translation. Does the Arabic clearly carry the proposed meaning, or does the argument depend on selecting one modern English word from several possible meanings? Translation is interpretation. A person who cannot read Arabic should not be ashamed of relying on translation, but should compare qualified translations and consult reliable tafsir. Second, examine the history of interpretation. Did respected early scholars understand the verse in a similar way? A modern interpretation is not automatically wrong because it is modern. Later observations can illuminate possibilities in language. But if no classical interpreter understood the verse that way, the claim should be described as a modern reflection rather than the obvious original meaning. Third, examine the science. Is the scientific claim established, actively debated, speculative, or false? A polished animation can make speculation look certain. A headline may exaggerate a research paper. A scientific source may say could, while a social media post changes it to proved. Return to primary scientific institutions and peer-reviewed research whenever possible. Fourth, examine the precision of the verse. Does it state a narrow fact that clearly distinguishes one scientific model from alternatives? Or is the language broad enough to fit many events? Broad language can be spiritually powerful. It is weaker as a precise scientific prediction. Fifth, examine the conclusion. Even if the verse matches a scientific fact, what follows logically? Does it establish that the knowledge was unavailable through ordinary observation? Does it identify revelation as the best explanation? Does it prove Islam specifically, or only show that the verse is compatible with nature? A conclusion should never become larger than its evidence. These 5 tests are not weapons against faith. They are protection against disappointment, misinformation, and avoidable embarrassment. A young Muslim may hear a dramatic claim and repeat it at school. A teacher or classmate may reveal that the claim misquoted a verse or misunderstood the science. The young person may feel that Islam itself has been disproved. Responsible adults should not place that burden on children. Teach them the stronger position. The Quran invites reflection on creation. It contains descriptions that are compatible with important features of the universe. Some passages may carry striking resonance with later discoveries. But the truth of Islam does not depend upon every viral scientific miracle claim being correct. Faith has deeper foundations. A Muslim can celebrate astronomy without manipulating it. A Muslim can admit uncertainty without shame. A Muslim can say, "This comparison is interesting, but I cannot confirm that the verse was intended as a technical prediction." That sentence is not weakness. It is trust that truth does not require performance. There is another lesson for people who reject religion. Finding a possible natural mechanism does not settle every metaphysical question. To say that the universe developed through physical processes does not explain why physical reality and its laws exist. To say that life formed under suitable conditions does not determine whether those conditions have an ultimate explanation. To say that human religious experience involves the brain does not prove that the experience has no object beyond the brain. Every experience involves the brain, including the experience of reading a scientific instrument. The existence of a neural process does not by itself determine whether the belief produced through that process is true or false. Skepticism must also remain within the limits of its arguments. An honest conversation requires discipline from both sides. The believer should not call every gap a miracle. The skeptic should not call every mechanism a disproof of Allah. The believer should not mistranslate verses. The skeptic should not assume that revelation must speak like a modern textbook. The believer should acknowledge alternative explanations. The skeptic should acknowledge unanswered philosophical questions. The believer should avoid claiming certainty where scholars differ. The skeptic should not confuse disagreement with irrationality. Underneath this discussion is a question of character. What do we want from the evidence? Do we want truth, even if truth requires revising our favorite argument, Or do we want victory? Victory is tempted by exaggeration. Truth is willing to move slowly. Victory selects only supportive information. Truth reads the objection. Victory fears uncertainty. Truth distinguishes what is known, what is reasonable, and what remains open. The Quran's invitation to look again is an invitation to this kind of character. Look again, not because Allah fears investigation, but because human beings are capable of careless sight. We see what confirms us, we ignore what threatens us, we mistake repetition for evidence, we attach our pride to conclusions. Looking again requires humility. Astronomy itself depends on this humility. A telescope receives light without changing the universe to fit our expectations. Data may refuse the model we preferred. An unexpected result can open an entirely new field. Scientists build instruments to detect errors that human senses cannot recognize unaided. Calibration is an admission that observation can be distorted. Peer review is an admission that individual judgment can fail. Replication is an admission that one result may mislead. These scientific habits have moral parallels. Check your assumptions. Invite correction. Distinguish observation from interpretation. Do not hide inconvenient evidence. Do not claim more than your method can establish. A religious community committed to truth should recognize the value of those habits. The Quran does not ask believers to fear reality. It asks them to understand reality as a sign. At the same time, science does not require a person to believe that only measurable things are real. That statement would itself be philosophical, not a scientific measurement. No telescope has observed the proposition that telescopes are the only path to truth. Science rests on logical principles, mathematical structures, trust in observation, and judgments about evidence that cannot themselves be reduced to one isolated experiment. Human knowledge is richer than a single instrument. So can astronomy prove that Islam is true? Not by itself. Astronomy cannot scientifically demonstrate every claim of Islam. It cannot measure revelation directly. It cannot observe the Day of Judgment. It cannot determine prophethood from the spectrum of a galaxy. It cannot establish the authenticity of a historical report through a telescope. Anyone promising that astronomy alone produces an unavoidable proof is promising too much. But astronomy can do something important. It can reveal a universe with history, order, law, scale, structure, beauty, and conditions that permit conscious life. It can correct simplistic ideas about a static or eternal cosmos. It can deepen philosophical questions about explanation, intelligibility, and purpose. It can show that the Quran's created and ordered cosmos is not threatened by modern discovery. It can make certain verses newly striking without forcing them into technical meanings. It can expose human arrogance. It can awaken wonder. It can become one strand within a cumulative case for belief. And when joined with honest study of the Quran, the life of Prophet Muhammad, the coherence of Tawheed, the moral vision of revelation, and the experience of worship, it can help a person see the larger picture with greater clarity. The most important question may therefore be slightly different from the title of this episode. Not only can the stars prove my religion, but what kind of person am I becoming as I look at the stars? Do I become more truthful, more humble, more willing to learn? More careful with claims, more aware of my dependence, more responsible with the brief life I have been given. The people praised in the Quran do not end their reflection with a collection of cosmic facts. They remember Allah while standing, sitting, and resting. They reflect upon the creation of the heavens and earth. Then they recognize that this was not created without purpose. Their knowledge becomes a dua, their wonder becomes responsibility, their sight becomes guidance. Tonight, perhaps, step outside. Allow your eyes time to adjust. Find the moon if it is visible. Notice the darkness between the stars. Remember that the light reaching you may have traveled for years, centuries, or far longer. Remember that your eyes, your mind, the light, and the laws connecting them are all realities you did not create. Then look again, not for a slogan written across the sky, not for a shortcut around careful thought. Look for a sign. A sign does not shout every answer. It points, and the responsibility to follow with honesty belongs to the person who sees it. You have been listening to The Guided Hour, where every journey carries a story and every story carries guidance. Until our next journey, may Allah increase us in beneficial knowledge and guide us toward what is true.